Welcome to the New Masculine Podcast. This is a place where masculine identifying people come together in community to disrupt outdated models of masculinity and together construct new models for our way forward as men. As a special note, while this conversation is between men, this podcast values all beings and seeks to create positive impacts for all. I'm your host, Travis Stock. I am a master life coach, an Equus coach, which means I often partner with horses when supporting clients, and I'm a teacher. In my coaching work, I am passionate about the balance of masculine and feminine energies in each of us, regardless of gender. I seek to help others nurture a relationship with both types of energy, which often leads to a greater sense of wholeness. And yet what I found in my work with men is that many of us have been taught messages about what it means to be a man by first teaching us to avoid anything that is associated with the feminine. That avoidance leads to few experiences of intimacy, emotions outside of anger, vulnerability, or even a sense of belonging. Striving to comply with these models of masculinity has many of us feeling isolated, ashamed, unworthy, afraid, angry, and depressed. That's why I started this podcast, to bring men together who are ready for something new, something more whole. Hey, I'm so excited to keep going with this series of episodes where I'm talking with some of the men who've experienced Equus Coaching with me at various workshops. Today's episode is with returning guest and one of the first participants in the New Masculine's men's retreat last year, Craig Temple. I have a feeling and a hope that once you've heard some of his experience, that you're going to be more excited and interested in signing up for one of these opportunities for yourself. So let me make sure that you have some dates where there are opportunities in the future where you might be able to do so. So on June 21st, I'm hosting a workshop in Seattle, Washington called Create Thriving Relationships. This is a workshop that's not just for men. This is for anybody who wants to attend. You can come solo or you can bring an important relationship in your life. That can be a friendship, that can be a romantic relationship, that can be family. It doesn't really matter. But this is going to be a place where we're practicing the skills that allow both yourself and the other person in your relationship to thrive. So that's June 21st, Seattle, Washington, Create Thriving Relationships. I'll make sure there's more information in the description where you can find the link to register and to find out more about this event. Now, you're also going to hear me talking about the New Masculine's second gathering. Now, I have those dates and I'm really excited to share them with you. September 20th and 21st, we're going to be gathering in Portland, Oregon for the New Masculine's second men's gathering. I am so excited to get out there with the guys, to enter the herd, to find where we belong, and to do some really good work in community. I really hope that some of you that listen are really excited to come to this event. If you're a man that wants to sign up, make sure you save those dates on your calendar. And if you're one of my listeners that's not a man and you have men in your life, please give them that little nudge they need in order to get curious about this. I don't know if you've picked up from the conversations I've been having on this podcast, but us men, we're not that good at signing up for things that are for our own personal betterment. So sometimes we need the people in our lives to give us a little push, to give us a little permission to sign up for something like that. So September 20th, 21st, the second New Masculine's men's retreat is going down in Portland, Oregon. I really hope to see you there. Welcome, everybody. This is my second conversation for the podcast with Craig Temple. Got returning guest, good friend of mine, big supporter of the New Masculine, and actually was one of the first attendees of the New Masculine's first men's retreat back in last year, 2024. So welcome back, Craig.
Thank you. Great to be here. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you again. Update us on how your life's been. What have you been up to since we talked to you? You were episode 4 of the New Masculine, which was way
that?
back in 2019. That was the before times.
Not
like
much
that. There's so much has
really
changed.
since 2019. Yeah,
we've been through a bit as a
it's
human
been a wild
race.
18 months since 2019, hasn't it? I'm handed a note. Wait a minute. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess lots has changed, but my wife and I, Jude, we moved out to the country, I guess 2014, and it's just kind of the two of us up on a hill, and we're kind of introverts, so a lot of it hasn't changed. I think we are like everybody. We kind of learned how to like live together, completely no outlet, no getting away from each other for the during the COVID and the lockdown. But then since then, it's just a continuing process of learning to change together and seeing how where we bump against each other and where we fit differently and where we fit better as we go through there. But for the most part, yeah, life, career, business, all that sort of stuff, it's going well. Yeah, and it's been nice to come in down and see you and get to do experience what you're doing with the horses and as well as your other stuff.
Yeah, it's been many years of us knowing each other. And so it was really cool to be able to share this experience with you and take our friendship and what we've kind of bonded over and actually bring it into the work that I'm passionate about. So I loved having you there. And it's amazing to, as I'm listening to you talk about how much of kind of how you reflect on the last several years of the last 6 years, 5, 6 years almost. We're looking at like you're talking about how much your relationship, your marriage was a part of like what has evolved and changed and growing together. And I think so many people really had to confront parts of their relationships as a part of COVID and lockdowns and being together so much. And while we are on the other side of that, I think there's still remnants of that. Like I know many people still work from home all the time that didn't used to work from home, or there's still remnants of that that are parts of our lives and our relationships. And I just think that it's so interesting to hear from a man's perspective how much that experience was caused your relationship to change and to grow and to evolve because it sort of forced us all to have to.
Yeah, and us as individuals have changed, we are with or interacting with different people than we used to. I mean, we see that all around us in the world, is that we may not, we definitely don't understand all the ways that each one of us is different, but we are all different. I mean, just 5 years will do that to you, but especially
Uh-huh.
it's momentous periods of the past 5, 6 years. And yeah, we're all a little different and we're still trying to figure out. I think one interesting thing is we kind of got put into our own little shell of like taking care of ourselves and being,
Mhm.
maybe we had a partner in the foxhole with us, maybe we didn't, but we were all like, okay, we all got kind of taught like, okay, you're a little bit on your own here. And I think as men, we're sort of used to that to a certain degree, but we, I don't know, it feels like people around us have a little bit they've changed how their expectations from other people. And it's almost in a way, it's made people less dependent on other people, but at the same time, it's made people less interacting. They're getting less from people. They're requiring less from people, but they're also sharing less. And that's actually part of the work we did down at the horses. It's just that when you are receiving versus transmitting all the time, then when there that isn't a balance, you're you're taking away from the shared experience from the world. You're depriving yourself from certain things, or you're taking on too much, or taking on or not taking not giving yourself out. It's like it's interesting. We've all kind of rolled up the shutter to a certain degree, and I think part of that I mean, some of us, we've definitely found more connections and deepened in certain ways, but there's that. It seems like it's more. The peaks are higher on both ends in a way. How's been your experience with that?
Well, as you're talking, like I think that's something that really scares me about, and I can feel it in myself too. I do feel that sort of rolling up the door and sort of being like a little bit more self-reliant. And I think you're right that we as men are used to doing that. We've been a little bit more trying to be self-reliant or pulling like working on it our own, especially in our Western world, can be very much that. And I think one of the things we were talking about early on in the podcast even was how isolating the experience of being a man can be. And now with the changes of our world and sort of the challenges of the political world, the racial world, the sort of everything that we're looking at these days, I think it can feel even more isolating in many ways. And that scares me to think about how we already went from an isolated sort of culture as men and now we might be even more isolated. And I think that I think it scares me a little bit to think about that, because even myself, who's very conscious and thoughtful about this work, can feel where I pulled in a bit more after that experience and where I continue to pull in sometimes based on the challenges of our current world and the challenges of politics. And it's like,
It's gotten
it
harder.
feels, yeah, it
It's
has
gotten
gotten
harder,
harder.
and that plus trying to do more, but be more inside yourself.
Mm,
That's not a good recipe. Yeah,
no,
it's not.
no, definitely not. Well, and thanks for teeing up. Like that's part of the work we were doing at the retreat we did last year was actually being face to face, interacting, being in relationships in person. And so let's sort of talk a little bit about your experience at the retreat. So first, let me just hear like what drew you to this type of a retreat? Like, why did you sign up and say yes to this?
Well, a few things. One, my wife had done a little bit of the horsey retreats before, and she just talked about it being love and loved it. And I've never spent much time around horses, but I did get some experience around. My grandparents had horses, and I visited a few times. I always liked horses. I liked animals. I like that. I like uh, one of the best feelings in the world for a Craig is when an animal likes you and it says, "Oh," you get a little look from an animal, say, "Oh, I like you." It's like there's a nice hit of dopamine to be like, "Oh, I like that." It's like I just I like animals. So there's
Yeah, I've
that, but
seen you
also
with your
the
dogs.
yeah. But anything like a stranger dog on the street or a cat,
Uh-huh.
in a store, it's like if the cat's going to let you give it some, a totally strange cat is going to let you give it some relatively aggressive scritches, it's like, okay,
You've earned that.
yeah, you're one of the good ones, it's like
Uh-huh.
you just go up, you blunder up into a cat and try to pet it like you would, a yellow lab, but it's like, let's see how this goes for him.
Mhm.
But so there's that. I mean, that part was really fun, but it's not my first time doing it was my first time doing a men's retreat, men's
Mm.
retreat, which feels like it's feels like it's weighty language. There's so much, I don't want to say baggage, but there's so many, it's a thing, it's a cultural thing. There's an idea of what a men's retreat is, and there's preconceptions you have going in, or all that. But it's my first time doing that, but I've done a little bit of you know work, or meeting in groups and talking to each other and trying to just like navigate how we're experiencing ourselves and experiencing others. And I've really enjoyed that. It's really been fulfilling. And we met doing some of that work many moons
Mhm.
ago, and I really like that side of myself that I hadn't really explored much before my wife had gone down to that path, and then invited me in to it with the groups of people she knew. And so I really like that. And so the two of those, I mean, that's a winning combo for me. And plus, of course, being knowing that it was you, I was like, okay, I got to be there and hang out and get the travel experience, which definitely, even if Jude hadn't already told me that's how she and you fell in love, I'd have been there for that.
Thank goodness for the wives out there. I mean, that's what keeps my business running around these men's work. Because I think you're right that there is sort of this weighty thing that all of us feel a little unsure about when we hear men's group, or even when we do one-on-one work with a coach or a therapist or something. I think we don't culturally as men initially sign up for all those things very easily. We have a little reticent about how we were socialized to think about those kinds of things. Pull that apart for me a little bit more. What is that weighty thing you're talking about? How do you connect with it, or what are the specifics in your life to that?
Well, I don't know. I think it's got to be a lot of that's cultural. Is just like a men's retreat is, when you say men's retreat, the look that comes to mind is like, it's like, oh, it's a men's retreat. It's going to be just a bunch of, it's going to be, uh, patchouli smelling dudes hitting banging bongos and being like, okay, that's it's being you get this image of people that are identified, even if it's just the cliche, the cultural cliche of it. It's just like, this is something that it's not like regular guys do. There's a thing to it. It's like it's a little too forward. There's going to be too much uh what do I mean by forwardness? There's going to be a little too much, people are going to be not keeping to themselves as much. You're going to have
Mm,
there's going to be a vulnerability that you're going to have to allow, and whether or not you think of it in those terms, that feels a little bit like, and it's like, you snicker about it and you joke about it culturally, and it's a thing. But yeah, Jude and I were talking before. It's like we, women kind of have, in some ways, often, it's more often women that have a privilege to do these sort of self-improvement things and these things. And plus, there's the cultural and maybe even older than culture idea of women are grouped together. You're in a group together. You have to work together. You spend a lot of time historically. Go back to before civilization. You know, the women are together gathering and preparing and making the things at home, where the men are off doing things, you know, task oriented things, and coming back together. And it's you know, so it's women have more, maybe have more time to do that, but men, we don't really give ourselves permission to that culturally. And
Hmm.
it's, I think it's almost like I was kind of thinking about that earlier today. And you know, it's almost like, okay, can we, how do we give ourselves permission to even entertain an idea of going on something like this? It's like, it's almost like how we would justify it to the tax man as an expense. I was like, it's almost the
Mm.
same thing. It's like, okay, if this can be an objective value on a spreadsheet somewhere to my business, to me, to my bottom line, then I can go for it. Then it's legitimate expense. Then it's a thing that's valid to. Otherwise, it's like, you know, show the tax man something. It's like, was that really, you know? And it made me think, it's like, man, we kind of treat ourselves like corporations. You know, it's like
Hmm.
corporation, that the sort of the toxic thing with corporations now is like, if they are obligated to do what's best for their shareholders. And as men, you know, we have some shareholders, you know, we're a big one of them, but we're not the only one. We often have responsibility to others around us. You know, our families are, you know, aged parents, our wives and children, if you've got kids. We don't often do things that are just for us, and as we have to
Hmm.
justify it. And that's kind of an interesting way to think about that. And I don't know, what's your experience with that? Have you found that with yourself? Like this idea that you treat yourself almost like an entity you have to serve. It's like you have and justify to others.
Yeah, totally. And I think another like element for me is like I have all of these skills of training as a coach, being a social worker. I have these sort of skill sets, and sometimes I use that against myself to be like, "Oh, I shouldn't invest in those things because I already have those skills. I should just." It sort of reinforces I should be able to do this on my own, even though I'm inviting men to be a part of this. Even though I value and believe that our work has to be done in community and shared with each other. So I yeah, I totally have that where if I can justify it in sort of a professional development kind of way, it makes more sense. But if it's just personal, I have a whole nother barrier in front of me that I have to sort of work around that I think
And
is
f-
common
yeah,
with men.
and forget the fact that you know objectively that you work on these. If it was purely
Yeah.
soft skills, and had no, it's like that would still have a benefit to any of those metrics that you might value, or if others might be judging you on, or you might be holding yourself up to a societal ideal. Um, yeah, so it's a weird sort of thing, but it's that idea of like, who's on our board of directors, who's
Mm.
in charge of us, who's, I mean, it's a little bit of the world at large, culture, our family, or this, a lot of them are just ideas of what people are, but it's this weird idea that we don't. So it's funny, maybe if somebody is historically not the CEO of the family or whatnot, and they're not making the money, they just have to get permission to do something, and then it's like, okay, then it's easy for them. It's whereas us, we're the ones that have to give ourselves permission, and maybe sometimes that's harder for whomever's wearing the pants that gives permissions in a family, in a group, whether it's man, woman, or whatever in between. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really interesting as I'm hearing you talk. One of the things that I didn't expect while launching and promoting this first retreat was you're talking about your idea of what a men's retreat is sort of like the patchouli smelling, emotionally available, vulnerable kind of guy that can maybe feel a little uncomfortable for some of us. But I also got questions on the other side of it. There's such a maniverse kind of thing that's out there now that sort of like the red pilling or the incel movements or like the
Right.
kind of men's work that's out there that is about like a boys club that in my estimate is not what I'm trying to create, is not what I value, is not what I'm trying to promote in the world. It that feels like still more of that kind of like uh, empowering each other to take power over in every situation rather than being able to share power and being able to see everyone as equal and valuable. And so it was interesting that I had to do some promotional pieces and writing about what I was doing in the opposite direction that I didn't anticipate either. And I think that's such an interesting like current cultural moment that we're in, that there is for sure the version that you see or saw in your mind's eye,
Mm.
but there's also this other version that's out there that people are like, wait, I don't want to go to a men's retreat because it might be that Andrew Tate, that kind of like
Right.
ugh, that's out there in terms of
The
the
woman
men's work.
hating people that just
Uh-huh.
need to complain and bitch and moan about something because they don't have down at a level they can't even see. They don't have any support or partnership where they can share their hurts or something. Yeah. So one of our other guests there, he talked about his spouse. He was like, oh, her first reaction was that. So that was kind of interesting. I forgot about that. Yeah, it's
Yeah, his wife wasn't sure what he was going to be coming to this for.
yeah,
And luckily, he felt empowered to make his own choices, and it was all
yeah,
good in the end. But interesting that even a wife that's supportive of many of different kinds of things, when it came to a men's work thing or a horse retreat, that it was sort of like, is this going to be a little too hippy dippy out there? Or is this going to be. So even the women in men's lives can sometimes, maybe inadvertently, maybe not on purpose, be a barrier for some guys to be like, even I'll get judged in my primary relationship for doing something like that.
real or imagined. It's
Uh-huh.
still real at the end of the day, whether they're really being judged or that's just think they are. That's still a barrier.
It's amazing how many, even just the, you say real or imagined, even just the imagined judgment or the imagined rejection or the imagined shame that we might feel if we transgress this sort of man code thing that we're doing. And it, like, how convincing even the imagined ones are. It doesn't even
Oh
have to
yeah.
be real. It's real enough that it's imagined.
Well, at the end of the day, I mean, in our experiences, it's all our interpretation of what's happening around us. It's rarely do you get something that's explicit, and then it's like, okay, that's real, but it's
Mhm.
we're always filtering and interpreting and making up the stories and of things that are really happening around us, perceived or objectively real. Yeah, it's interesting.
Let's dive into your actual experience at the men's retreat. So you show up, you say yes, you're interested in the horses, you're interested in hanging out with me, you're kind of like, I like doing this kind of group work together. Tell me about your experience at the retreat.
Okay, yeah, it was. I had a really good time. It was not what I was expecting. I didn't have a lot of expectations going in, but I was hopeful that it was going to be an interesting experience. And I'm a guy that likes to collect new experiences and interests, and just like give my brain something novel to play with, something shiny. And so for that reason alone, even if it was not my cup of tea, I would have enjoyed the experience. But I really enjoyed the experience. It was my cup of tea, and right from the beginning, it was just. Uh, you've obviously done that a lot before, so it was well organized. You knew how to get it done, so it was very easy and very welcoming. It just didn't feel weird at all. Even with the way we started the night before, just going out for dinner with everybody, just that was a nice way just to like have a beer, have a burger, whatever, a pizza, and chat with each other and just talk to our stories. So you show up there at the men's retreat. You're not all just like, oh, ooh, who are you guys? Like, hi, it's like trying to like present. So it's like, okay, we've met people at a restaurant before, so that part was there. But you prepare as well, but actually getting in with the horses, that was so much fun. It was really exciting to just to get to spend time with the animals, and also just to see how well, getting to watch the others work with them and getting to see um things that they probably can't see, and wondering when I was in there, what are people seeing that I can't see? Because it's so obvious when you're standing on the other side of that rail. It's like, oh, you can see the dynamics that's happening. And there's something about the, I guess this is probably why this horse work exists, is that these horses, I mean, my wife told me and you've told me, it's that they're just a mirror for your energy, how you show up. And it was really fun to reflect that. And it's just that's a real mind shift. How I mean, do you still how I mean, you've done this a million times. How does that experience? How do you like seeing brand new people who are first at this? How does that change for you? What is it? What's that like?
It seems like it would get old or like it would become repetitive at some point, but I'm always astounded by the work. And there's so many things that I don't know. My personality can be a little like, I can be a little bit of a control freak. I like to map things out. I like to have a plan of action. But what this work has helped me with personally is learning how to like co-create with reality, letting go of the plan, letting something else step forward and create aha or awareness or something new in the experience, because I don't have really any control over a horse. Once I put you in a pen with a horse with all the control mechanisms taken away, I can't script what's going to happen. I didn't train those horses. I didn't do anything to set that up. And so I have to learn a lot more about how to create in the moment rather than having a plan in the past that's for the future. and how to manage and control all of it. So I still say oftentimes, like, it still shocks me how deep we can go just by standing next to an animal that size. It still blows my mind. And I still, every time I've ever had a co-facilitator with me at an event like this, I always look at them and go, we get paid to do this. Like, I'm just like, this is cool. Like, I'm still in awe of the work that I found myself in these days.
Mm, awesome. Yeah, it's something about the horses, because it's you can't bullshit a horse, right? They're not going to be polite. They're not going to,
Hmm.
like, when people talk with other people, we all have our codependencies. We all try to be polite. We try to make how you interact with me, I'm going to try to make that work for you. Just get through this interaction, or to, for whatever reasons, it's like that, that can allow us to fool ourselves about how we're showing up in the world with other people. If, like, I think some people just don't understand why they don't have success, or why they don't get along with certain people. I mean, a lot of times it's hard if you can't really get the nuance of feedback. People are telling you what they need to just get through the interaction. If it's not working for them in a specific approach, and entirely whatever it is, like, people, people, people are not, will bullshit you, and what can be bullshit, but a horse is not going to bullshit you. It's just going to be like, no, no, this is like, I don't need that. Like, I don't want to. I'm not even going to talk to you. I'm not even going to stand here. I'm just going to go over there. It's like, forget it. This is, and you see some people that you can see some of their assumptions where it's like, oh, I thought this. I'm confused why this isn't working, because this always works, and it's like, it might work with dogs, or it might work with people, but it's a horse is a little bit different, and seeing that tested, it must be. Yeah, it must be a trip. And now, do you think that specifically? Why do you think horses are different from that, from, like, perhaps other animals? Or
I don't know that all other animals are different. I do think it's one of the more domesticated animals that we interact with that still belongs to its own community. Like, out in the pastures, they have their own social dynamics. So they are social creatures. I don't think that their brain development and their approach to community, though, is the same as ours, where there's a social self, there's a presented self versus the self we really are internally. I don't think they've developed that thing. And so they don't, what you were talking about, like, humans can bullshit us. Humans can give us feedback that is part of their own agenda, or that is a part of a way of manipulating the situation, or just trying to get what they want out of it. So I think there's this thing where we know humans can lie to us, and we're constantly working around, like, how do I develop trust? How do I know what's true with another person? Whereas I think there's sort of an intrinsic knowing that most of us have, that animals don't really lie, and that they don't have that ability to create a story and a future where they need to say something in order to get the right outcome in the future. They don't have to work around other people to do that. They are social creatures, and they do have hierarchy, and they do have power, and they do have agendas like food and resources and that kind of stuff, but they don't have the social self that we as humans have. And unlike dogs and cats that live in our homes and we've kind of bred to our neuroses, they're a little bit more connected to their own sense of belonging in their communities and in the way that they approach life. And so they're not quite as anthropomorphized or human like part of us as humans. And so I think that's why I love working with horses, because they don't bullshit you. They give you clear, non-judgmental feedback, because whatever they're responding to what they feel. They don't have that ability to go, oh, I feel this way, but I shouldn't feel this way, and I don't want to hurt that person's feelings if I say this. They don't do any of that social mapping, and so they just move away from you, or come closer to you, or start to nibble on your coat, or try to, like, they just start to do what they feel in those moments. And so I think they just can give us a little bit more clear feedback than maybe some of the animals we live with in our homes.
that's such a valuable training resource, practice resource, because I mean, for your own empathy, you can have a mistaken idea for your empathy. I mean, empathy. I really value empathy, but I think it's a lot of people think empathy is like, oh, more touchy feely, really understanding. But I think, honestly, it's the biggest life hack there is when you understand a mind space that you don't share.
Hmm.
Um, Sometimes it can be a mind space you don't want anything to do with, but it's not sympathy. It's not, oh, I know what that feels like. And having that ability to be like, oh, I kind of understand this, and I'm reading this, or I'm understanding this, even though I don't know it. that helps you in negotiations and business and just connecting with friendships and, and romance. It's just that ability to understand. I mean, and it's a skill. I mean, if you were a total asshole, you could use that for nefarious purposes and you can manipulate people with that. But I think usually the people that manipulate people, they're not really so much empathizing. They just really understand a certain type of person and they are good at
Hmm.
manipulating those. But people that are like not that person are like, oh, don't want anything to do with you. So I don't even know if they have that much empathy or if they just have they know what they know. But yeah, it's I mean, talking about our justifying to our board of our own little corporation, it's like you improve your your empathy, your ability to understand, your ability to read and challenge your idea of that, which I think you can with the horse. It's like, okay, you see some people that are, oh, great with animals, great with whatever, and it's like, but they get in there and it's like, this isn't working. The things I normally do don't work. It's like, okay,
Mm.
maybe you're really good with that yellow lab, or that dog where everything's gone well, but it's like maybe you're not so good with a prey animal, some that might be predisposed or been taught to fear you. And some dogs are like that. Some people are like that. A lot of people are like that. And maybe that's why you don't have successes with certain things. And you could have all these interactions where they do have the you're getting told the feedback is not quite accurate, whereas the horse is accurate. And then you can be like, oh, okay, hang on a second, I'm challenging that. And only when you get that real feedback can you adapt. And a lot of people are really good at adapting, and you can see the change. And you can, I think really, honestly, that's like you want to justify to your corporation about why this work is good. It's like you find a way to get a horse to be cool with you or for it to let you do things that you want to do with it. You're going to need to be able to see that horse for who it is. And if you have that ability, this is and it's like a muscle. It's not a I don't think it's a I mean, it's to a certain degree you have the capability within you, but I think everybody can improve on that skill. It's a really valuable, like you want to talk about self-improvement. This is improving every aspect in your life.
Totally. And you're talking about so many different points that I really want to pull out. That you said that like horses being a prey animal, that is a unique part of this. That many times people are a little intimidated by horses when they go in and stand. If you've never been around horses, it's a big animal. It's almost 1,000 pounds, sometimes even bigger than that. So people are really intimidated, and that can feel really vulnerable to people to step into that relationship. But we also have to remember in that scenario, technically, we as humans are the predator and they're the prey animal. They're stepping into vulnerability and being with us too. They don't have the same carnivore kind of predator drive. Their eyes are on the side of their head. They're looking for danger in their environment and making decisions based on that rather than locking in on prey and like the front of the eyes like we do as humans and dogs and cats. And so there's this like shared vulnerability about the process that I really love to highlight in the work that I do, because it's not just you as a guy going in there that having to be vulnerable. That horse is being vulnerable too. And when you're both willing to step into that space, into that vulnerability, not knowing what could happen, knowing that animal is actually potentially lethal, even though it has no desire to hurt you or to eat you or anything like that, that's a really interesting place for a lot of guys to confront, is that shared vulnerability, and a nice starting point for many relationships. Because as you were saying, like you were so glad we did the dinner beforehand to like kind of suss each other out, get to know each other, lower our guards together. Like it takes a while for us as people to lower our guards and to settle in with each other and suss out whether it's safe for us to be vulnerable. With a horse, you're automatically in that vulnerability right away. So you start from ground zero and then get to move on. And so I love that you kind of brought up that prey animal thing, because it is an important aspect of why I work with horses and why I invite men and other people to like navigate their relationship with this animal. You're also talking about this piece around empathy. And one of the way I think that a lot of guys are actually really struggling with or confused about how to develop this skill set that we weren't taught as boys. It wasn't rewarded in us to check in about how others feel, or to make sure that we're not that we're not having a negative impact on somebody. We're actually taught more to win and
Yeah.
to achieve and to conquer and to go after a goal without really paying attention to the impact of what we're doing.
Despite what impact we might have on others. Yeah, like
Hmm.
overcome that
Despite, yeah,
almost. Yeah.
exactly, exactly. And so I think a lot of guys feel confused, like, how do I develop that? If I'm getting that feedback as a boss, as a partner, as a father, like, how do I develop a sense of empathy when the world didn't teach me that? I think this is a great place to do that, because you will get feedback from an animal that's not trying to bullshit you, that isn't trying to lie, that isn't trying to get you to do more of the dishes or be nicer in this situation or say the right words in this situation. Like, it is really just responding to what it feels from you. And I think that can be really illuminating and eye-opening when you show up a certain way. It has a certain impact, and then you actually get to evaluate, was that my intention? Did I want that impact? Or was my intention misaligned with my impact? And if that is misaligned, we get to do real time work there with the horse to align those two things: your intention, how you're trying to show up, and what the impact it has. And you get to explore the gap in that. You get to understand why that gap might be there, and try out different ways of approaching something so that you can step in with more alignment between your intention and your impact. And inherently in that practice, you will develop empathy skills. You will notice your impact. You will notice what it feels like to be in another's shoes. And it's a little cleaner than when we do that with humans, because we like to justify our impact on other
Yeah.
people. But I think with an animal, we don't feel so attacked by or finger pointed at
Yeah.
when they give us feedback versus when a human gives us feedback.
Yeah, and I think there's a huge I think there's so many parallels maybe to explore. Is I think a lot of men aren't really good or don't have a lot of success with women or with dating or something like that. I mean, it's tough out there, but I think a lot of times they don't understand. I'm a nice guy, I do everything right. I don't understand why I'm just like, and I think that's a really hidden missing piece is they're not seeing the person on the other side of the table, or they're not seeing that other person for what they want, what they're experiencing through this. And I think and a lot of times there's a lot of good reasons why they might be just telling you what they need to tell you to get through this date safely. Speaking of prey animals, there's a lot of overlap between a lot of women throughout millions of years of history and horses. Like there's reasons why there are things land differently for men and for women in those sort of interactions. And I think if you can I would be interested to see if people guys who think they don't have a lot of success don't understand why they don't have success with women. I would be interested to see how they got along with horses, if there'd be any connection. I bet you there'd be some overlap. It'd be like they'd be like, why am I not? Why is this horse? They're that instant feedback you get with it without all the reasons why it might be softened, changed, or outright just suppress the feedback. It would be different. I think it would be a big help for a lot of people. And yeah.
100%. And that's such an interesting parallel that you're bringing up, that we do have different lived experience around power, about ability to choose for our own lives, around the ability, like the systemic things we have to navigate in our life that can change our experience of something. And I think that it's a prime time for men to be looking at that piece of things around, like, just because I don't interpret this in this way doesn't mean it's invalid that somebody else might. And if you actually get to practice and play with receiving feedback in that way, you might actually have more success in your relationships, more success at your working relationships, more ability to understand how something might come across. So
And God,
you're
where else can you stub your toe and not get your head bitten off these days, right? With interacting with a woman, especially, but anywhere, it's like
yeah.
yeah, it's impossible. Like, we'll talk about it's the horse isn't going to cancel you. The horse isn't gonna
Uh-huh.
flame you and make you feel like a total shitheel. It's like, yeah,
I think that's so true. There's so many high risk places that people are afraid to actually try anything and to step forward, and God forbid stub their toe, because there is so many consequences at this point. And so, like, my invitation to guys is, like, this could be a really great place to practice in a non-judgmental space, to explore, to see where you're not seeing things the way others see it, to see yourself through another's eyes, decide on whether or not you want to make any changes and adjustments. And the cool thing that I always bring to this is that I'm not going to tell you who you need to be as a guy. I'm not going to tell you how you need to show up. If you like the impact you're having, great, keep it. I'm not deciding that for you, but opening up the space between you and a horse to actually like kind of reflect on that so that you actually can make a choice in that rather than just saying this is how it is and I'm going to keep it this way. This actually gives you more options and more ability to choose more clearly and intentionally for your life.
And I really liked about it that, I mean, we come into this idea of all the preconceptions of a men's gathering or something like this. It doesn't have to be touchy-feely, that we still, in our language, we have to like say, oh, it doesn't have to be touchy-feely as if that's a thing that's not, but for a lot of people that is a thing. But you could be working on how you're showing up with an employee or something like that, something very specific, and it's developing those same skills and in that environment. It's like you don't have to be thinking about like how you can get in touch with your ancestral wounds or whatever. It's like you could be saying like, oh, I'm not sure how to work with this coworker. Like, what's going on here? I'm not sure, anything. And that's still developing those same skills that definitely apply across the board there. And it's an experience where um, it's fun just to be in the horse. I found it fun. I really like being in there and getting to learn about that. To get, okay, how let's say I do want to achieve something and get this horse to move over here and come over to me and hang out with me. It's like, how do I do that? Let's figure this out. It's a fun little puzzle. It's a fun environment. And getting to watch the other guy, just that's unique to that environment is, that's standing on that rail, watching the other guy working with his horse the first time, or watching a couple guys work with a group of horses or whatnot and try to achieve something together. That was really interesting to me because I think though the watching part of it was just as valuable and just as fun.
Yeah, it's my favorite part of why of like doing retreats versus like one-on-one work with me as a coach is that there's a whole nother element of the observation and both the people on the outside witnessing the other guy, seeing themselves in that other guy, not being the one that's on the spot on stage needing to like interact, but actually getting to passively observe those patterns. And sometimes you see yourself in it, sometimes you see other people in your life in those patterns, sometimes you see things that trigger something in you or that you judge in those other guys, and then the guy inside has to also navigate what it's like to be watched, what it's like to be seen, and like stepping into the unknown while there's an audience watching. And there's a lot in there for people. And so I think there's so much power in the men's kind of container when we're all together because we get to play off of those things that get triggered in us, or we get to play off those things where we see ourselves in someone else, or where we see someone else like that pattern in somebody else in our life. And we get to ask that guy, what is that for you? Why do you do that? I've never really been able to understand why my brother does that or why my kids do that, but it's similar to what you do, and you get to talk through things and really bounce the learning back and forth and enhance the learning because it's a shared experience where no matter whether you're inside or outside the pen or you're the facilitator or a participant, we're all going into this together to explore what does this bring up in us. And you so beautifully talk about and so connect the dots between like how the work this is. It's like it seems weird to just go stand next to a horse or do something with a horse, and how does that apply to my life? But you've so beautifully sort of illuminated the metaphor element of it. If this is playing out here, it's likely playing out in other parts of your life. If you view yourself this way but you're getting this feedback, that's probably happening somewhere else in your life. So we this whole thing is a metaphor that we get to unwrap together. And I loved having you guys on the rail watching the other guys and then helping me unwrap that metaphor, helping us talk through that so that the learning can be communal and deep and insightful from lots of different vantage points, not just my own.
And let's face it, like when you're, I mean, at whatever age you're doing this work, but I think the older you get, the more sure you get it, you're at the way you do it the right way. The more
Uh-huh.
confident you are, and the more it's set. Like maybe I think a 21-year-old is pretty damn sure about what he does it, but they got nothing on a 51-year-old. It's like, no, no, no,
Uh-huh.
I know how this works. And then to then walk in yourself, or to see that person just standing on the rail, just get that, oh, this approach isn't working.
Yeah.
And I'm being confused at that, being like, but this works. Like, I don't understand why this isn't working. Having that challenge for perhaps the first time, just because it's different. It's funny. It's standing on the rail. It's so easy to see what's going
Mm,
on, but when you're in there, it's like, you may not see it even yourself, or but that's so. I think a huge part of the learning comes from watching the others go through, not even just struggle, but just like go look at themselves like, oh, okay. When they get that moment where like, okay, this isn't working, or this is unexpected. This is not going how I thought. So it's like, but it's okay. So what? And challenging themselves, and you standing on the outside, you can say, oh, I know exactly what's. I could see this. This is easy, And then if you get to have that feedback after, it's like you can find a way to talk about that. But it's fun to see. In our group had that experience, somebody great with animals, great with it, just but it just wasn't going well. And it was like he had this moment where he's like, he was just kind of like, it was more, not so much disappointed but just a little confused, like, hey, wait a minute, this I don't this doesn't compute, almost, in a way. Fast forward like a couple hours, we're doing that stuff with the horse, like it had clicked for him. You actually literally saw that connection, or that him make the connection, make those adjustments, having that, it was really fun to watch. And it was really cool. Yeah, yeah, and then the group things, doing things as the group, that was a whole other aspect. Like just doing the solo work and waiting to watch that was fun. But then the group thing is where that's like, if you want to talk about pure team building or partnership or relationship, that's like literally it's going out of the metaphor world and into the directly applied world. And
Hmm.
it was really fun doing that work. And that was. Yeah, I don't know. I think that might have been even my favorite part for myself. You give two total strangers a task to do, two guys. It's like, oh, they're in there like a dirty shirt, they're elbows deep, and they'll be like bonded at the end of changing a tire for somebody, or whatever. It's like it's funny how we're just, our beings, our bodies, our little monkeys are suited to that. But that was really fun too.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole point. I like to do both individual experiences and paired or group experiences, because some of us learn better when we're just kind of face to face and talking about what's going on, and then some of us are better when we're completing a task, when we're working shoulder to shoulder, when we're in movement while we're doing something. And so I love that you point out that that was kind of your favorite aspect of it, was because that's how you best learn and what brought things out in you, and actually took it out of the metaphor and made it like, all right, now be in relationship with other people and see what happens. And I got to tell you, there's no one better to like have a part as a partner in crime in a group activity than Craig Temple, because he will bring the play, he will invite you into play, he will just go in directions you didn't expect, and there's just like a joy and a fun to watching you be a part of that, and to having you be one of the guys that kind of shook up the energy when we were doing group work to like actually make it silly, playful,
Mm.
less agenda driven, just more kind of following joy, no matter where it changed to in every moment.
Yeah, that's all I can do that's my coping mechanism. That's my drug of choice, is play, whether it's sports ball or goofing around or inventing games with the dog, or and
Yeah.
you're completely alone by yourself and you're goofing around. I definitely like that. And so that was a big part of it for me, is just it was a fun new place to play.
So I'd love to hear more like directly about like what were you working on in your own self when you were at the retreat, and like how are you applying that in your life these days?
Oh yeah, okay. So one of the questions you asked to start was, okay, what do you want to work on? What do you want to talk about with the horse? Was it a coworker? Was it your wife? Was it whatever? And I was like, well, I don't know. I'm pretty much fine. I don't really need to improve on anything. Um, no, I was thinking about, okay, one of the things I would I I'm easy to I'm kind of a lone wolf, I is sort of like what we talked about, where the past few years we all kind of had to be a little bit more of a lone wolf, learn that. But I've always been a little bit more of that. So I can take care of my needs. I can get what I need out of things. So when I'm dealing with people, whether it's at home or wherever, I can kind of just go along with it. And if I don't get quite what I need, I'll take care of it. I can, just, it's like I can handle it. But as a result, I don't really show up as much in the world. I don't really bring myself into the relationship with my wife as much, or
Mm,
with my playing pickleball. I just, when you acquiesce, not because you don't want to be dominant, just because you don't care to, you're you're being a little bit of a pillow princess, if you know that term. It's just letting the other person do all the work. And yeah, maybe it's easier for you, but you kind of lose the ability to, if it's all you or all the other person, that's just all what one person. But you lose the co-creation when it's both
mhm.
of you and you're both participating. And going into the group work with the horses, I definitely wanted to do that anymore. I was like, okay, I'm not going to go for a leadership. There was three of us in the pen at one time. I'm like, okay, I'll let somebody else take the reins. I don't, take the reins. I don't really care to. It doesn't matter. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna be just to do a little bit more leadership. And that's just not my my style as much, but it was kind of fun. And that's when we went into doing more of the playful things, more of the fun things, and got the horse to do some of the silly stuff. And I think that that's important in my relationship with my wife. I know I don't necessarily do that, whether it's picking a movie or deciding what to do. If you just ask, okay, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? What do you want to do? Ultimately, because if my wife does what she wants to do, or we do what she likes to do, it's I like doing it too. It's more happy, but you're putting all the onus on that one person to
Mm-hmm.
do all the work, and at the end of the day it's boring for them. You're not
Mm.
showing up, you're not creating something new, it's nothing novel. And I see that on my pickleball. When I play pickleball with my partner, it's like, okay, just play the way you want to play and don't do that. But I'm depriving them of, or us, of this teamwork, this teammate. And I definitely found, I specifically wanted, because I playing with mixed partner, playing with a woman or playing with a man, it's just like you wind up, when you just let them, you just don't show up like that. It definitely was impacting my game. So I mean, one of the concrete benefits of this sort of thing is that it's made me a better mixed pickleball player for sure.
Hang out with horses and become a better pickleball player. That's pretty cool. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah. Yeah. I think that was fun to watch you experiment with that. And I think that's such a good example of, we all have habits in our lives and they work for us. They're things we've done and they work out for us. We can manage our own needs. We can make sure the other person's needs or wants are a priority. We can have habits, but some of the like subtle but amazing work that this horse work can do is to help you unhabituate sometimes, try new things, experiment with new things to see what else could be created. And I love that sort of concept that you're coming up with, that you got to co-create more rather than just be really easygoing about things and willing to just take whatever. It's like you actually started to step a little more into the creation, and it was actually really fun to watch you do that. And I saw its impact on the guys you were working with. So I loved noticing that and allowing you to step more up into your life a little bit more. And kind of the opposite of what you were saying about like, this is just going to be like kumbaya and patchouli smelling. It actually encouraged you to step more into your life, to step more into yourself, to have more of an opinion, to have more of a co-creation with your partners, whether that's on the pickleball court or at home with your wife.
And it's echoes of what we've been talking about all day today, is doing things that serve yourself in a
Mm,
way. And I think we're, as sensitive men, are probably the only sensitive men are probably the only ones thinking about this sort of thing or watching something like this. But we're trying to think of others, trying not to put ourselves first. It's that this is a we're trying to make sure we don't show up as overbearing or whatnot. But
mm,
as a result, maybe there isn't, that goes out of balance. And when you're out of balance, you're trying to be sensitive and be there for your partner's needs, and you're just not showing up them. You're depriving your shared life from something that's probably what drew them to you in the first place, is all the unique things about you that you wanted to do that they'd never experienced before.
uh-huh.
And now you just turn all that off and be like, oh boy, that'd be so boring if somebody, it's like the Pillow Princess. Somebody just keeps saying, okay, let's just do it your way, your way, your way. It's like, this is all I know my way. There's nothing novel or fresh about that. And especially if you've been in a relationship for a long time, it's like, come on,
Mm-hmm.
like it takes two to tango, right? And you've got to surprise each other, and you're not going to surprise somebody by just conforming or just standing in the background and participating and waiting till you can, go lone wolf it yourself. And it's been a fun, I'd like to continue work on that more, but I've been thinking about it off and on. What's it been? It's been 3 4 months, 3 months
Mm-hmm.
since we had our retreat. And it's been, Jude and I still talk about that. We're saying it's like, oh, that's interesting, because and I try to remember that, and I try to think about it. But it's been definitely one of my totems, though, is that time with the horse, the three of us and with the horses. And I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna, I think it was a nonverbal exercise. So I just took the reins, and we're going over here, we're taking a selfie, we're going onto this weird thing, we're making the horse walk under these pool noodles that are, I don't know what they're obviously to help a horse get over weird stuff. But I was just like, it was like, and you could tell the horses were like, oh, this is new. It's like, okay, I'm on board for this too, and the guys too. And it was like, I think all four of us, the three of us guys and the horse, we had a lot of fun.
You were one of the first guys to say yes to this whole men's retreat with horses through the New Masculine. You were one of the brave people to be on the maiden voyage with me, just experience it for yourself and with other guys. I'd love to hear from your perspective, why you think other guys should think about coming to the next one that we host this year.
Oh, well, I mean, you're gonna level up your ability to interact with things, people, animals, the person on the other end of the support phone. You're going to be able to get, I mean, purely mercenary reasons, you're going to get more of what you want out of life,
Mm,
100%. But I mean, that the only way that's going to happen is because you're going to be able to understand people more, and there's so many benefits that come with that. There's so many ways that that helps. Like I literally, I can't overstate it, that understanding somebody else, understanding something else, just being able to see how you're showing up in the world, how it's being affected, how it's landing for people. That is the biggest life hack there is. That is going to improve your relationship, your love life. It's going to massively improve your love life, like better than anything else you can do. It's going to massively improve your business and your, if you're already in a relationship, it's across the board. I mean, that's a no-brainer. Just being able to like find a way to to see yourself outside of your own internal world of biases. That's a big life hack, and it's gonna be a ton of fun, and it's gonna
mm,
be nice to hang around with some guys that are open to this but not sure about it, and you're gonna make some friends along the way, and it's gonna be a lot of play. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the next one.
oh, I had so much fun with you and the other guys there. I'm so grateful that you're excited about the next one. I'm so excited that you're doing this with me and being willing to have this conversation. You so beautifully lay out kind of the brass tacks of what you're going to get out of this, but then also can elaborate on that so well. So thank you so much for sharing your experience with the listeners, for being a guy that's willing to take the first step and invite others to join. And I think that I just hope that your example gives other guys permission to say yes to something like this. And so people should be really on the lookout for the next one that we're doing. We're thinking September, but more dates and details to come as we know more. Thanks so much for
Yeah,
joining me, Craig, and thanks for
yeah.
being such a part of the New Masculine from the beginning up until now. It's been a fun journey with you.
Thanks for creating the space. It's been a lot of fun.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. It was so fun for me to go back and unpack Craig's experience from the first men's retreat that we did last year. I hope hearing about his experience gives you some curiosity about what you might gain if you came to this year's men's retreat. So, as a reminder, the dates are September 20th and 21st of 2025 in the Portland, Oregon area. I'll make sure there's a link to register in the show notes.